He's just a regular guy with a cool job that God loves for some reason. Welcome to the Steve Marston Show, a daily journey in learning how to live more like Jesus, conversations with those that God is working through, and dad jokes. It's the most unique show you'll hear today. Now, here's Steve.
Yip, yahoo. Welcome in, one and all, to the Steve Marston Show. We have a couple of different segments of audience. We've got those of you that are listening as radio listeners, AM 630, The Word in San Antonio. Deep in the heart of Texas. And then those of you that are listening on 99.5 in Central Arkansas, Little Rock and surrounding areas. We're grateful that you guys are here. Same goes for those that are listening online on your own time. Thank you for being a part of the program. Let me get started with a little housekeeping business. I've gotten some notes here lately about our free PDF. We've been talking about that a lot and the website in general, how it's been updated. And I still want you to go and visit it. But a lot of people are saying, hey, Steve, what gives? Something's wrong with the PDF. We can't get it downloaded. So I went and checked it out. And sure enough, there was a little bit of an issue, but it has been corrected now. So you can go and get it downloaded for free and be able to have these 5 tips for Bible study. Now, if you're not familiar with what we've been talking about, I have come up with these 5 tips that will help you when you try to open your Bible to get the most out of it without, benefit of a workbook or a devotional, just strategies that you can use yourself, opening God's Word and being able to rightly divide it, to be able to handle it correctly, to be able to interpret it well. And these are certainly not things that I came up with on my own, but I have kind of taken some of my favorite strategies and I've kind of tweaked them to what I feel like is good. And I feel like if it works for me, it will work for you. So if you are so inclined and you've been frustrated because you try to click on it and it's not helping and nothing's working, that has been fixed. So go to the website, stevemarstonShow.com, click the 5 tips for Bible study PDF, and boom, it will come to you as a direct download. Working links now. So grateful for all the hard work of the computer geeks, and we've got that squared away. So it is back up and running for you guys. Now, let's get started with something that I came across just minding my own business, as I normally do, on social media. Scrolling through the Facebook page this weekend, I came across a little clip from Adrian Rogers. Now, I don't know if you know that name or not, but Adrian Rogers was pastor in Memphis for a long time. He had a ministry called Love Worth Finding that's on a lot of radio stations still, not on our 2 great radio stations, but sometimes around others have it. And was listening to a little clip from him, and it said, God honors the second mile. And I listened to this clip, and I was just immediately convicted because I thought it was so powerful and so good that it really spoke to me. So I thought I would bring it to you here today. Now, let's set some background first. Going the second mile, that's something that we hear a lot from people. You may not know where that phrase comes from. Well, back in the day when the Roman Empire literally ruled the known world, they had a thing that they did in order to keep people subjugated, to make sure that everyone knew that the Romans were still in charge and everybody else was going to follow whatever Rome said. Whenever a Roman soldier would encounter someone and decide that for whatever reason they didn't want to carry their backpack, their whatever they were hauling, they could force someone of that population who they were living as guardians over to carry their burden for a mile. And it didn't matter whether the person was going that way or not. The Roman soldier could stop and get any able-bodied person that he chose and say, okay, look, you grab my stuff and let's go this way. And again, the guy could have been going completely the opposite direction, but it didn't matter. They were forced to go the full mile carrying the burden for the Roman soldier. And Jesus came along, and Jesus said, I say to you, go the extra mile, and that's where we get that phrase from. And Adrian Rogers said, that God honors the extra mile. And I got to really thinking about it, and I thought, that's really powerful, because think about how we do things. Sometimes when we are asked to do things that are not in our job description, things that we're not comfortable doing, and yet the boss or maybe someone kind of puts it on us to do, we do it, but we do it grumblingly. We do it with clenched jaw and hating every step of it, because that's exactly what the Jewish people did when the Roman soldier would force them to walk a mile. They would do it, but they would hate every step of it and would not go a single millimeter further than that 1 mile. But Jesus had a different view of it. Jesus encouraged his followers that when you're forced to go a mile, go the extra mile. And when we kind of extrapolate that into our lives and what we have here in a Western society in 2026, still doesn't make us any happier to do that, because we don't like doing anything extra, especially when it's forced upon us or when we feel guilt-tripped into doing it. We'll grumble the entire way. And yet Jesus said, not only are we not to grumble and not to have it be something that causes us bitterness or anger, but we're to do it joyfully and do it for an additional mile. Now, what are the benefits of that? Why does God honor the second mile? Well, I think a lot of the reason is because we see people and we see situations not in our vision in our lives, but we see them the way God sees them. Because, see, God realizes that they're trying to flout their authority. They're trying to make our life miserable. And yet when we don't view them that way and view them the way God sees them, and we do it with joy, and we do it with an honor, and we do it with a no big deal kind of attitude, God honors that. God sees that we are put upon. And make no mistake that God is a God of justice. God has promised that he would repay everything that has been done to us unjustly our entire lives. Even the most minute things, God says he will rectify. Vengeance is his, says the Lord, right? And that goes for the big things, small things as well. So I think it's a part of our faith in God and trust in God that when we are put upon like that to go and do something that we just didn't want to do, and something that was put upon us maybe at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when we're ready to go home for the weekend, and the boss comes in and says, this project's got to be due Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, you get frustrated, you get angry, but lashing out, how is that going to help? Feeling sorry for yourself, how is that going to help? I think when we give it to God, it turns it completely around. And we say, God, I hate this. This is making me so angry, and I know it's going to make me bitter if I continue to hang on to this anger. I'm going to give this to you. I'm going to ask you to work through this and take this and turn it into a positive. If we can do that, if we can be disciplined enough in our lives to do that, that's where God is honored. Going that extra mile, going to the place where it's uncomfortable, but yet we give it to him. I think that's what he wants. And he has promised in his word that he will reward that. It's not something we're going to do in vain. It's not going to be something that's going to be overlooked. He will reward. That's his promise. Steve Marston Show continues. It's where faith and fun are both taken seriously. Welcome back. And just to kind of close the loop on the rewards that we were talking about in the first segment, when you're going the extra mile and how God rewards the extra mile and honors the extra mile, those aren't necessarily tangible things. Now, they will be on the other side of eternity, but here and now, maybe it is tangible, but again, it could not be. It could be just an extra blessing of Him working in a myriad of ways that we hopefully will see and pay attention to. So don't just get hung up on being physical rewards on that. The Steve Marston Show has got a brand new website. We've talked about this a lot, and I hope you've had a chance to go check it out. The numbers are growing on it, and what's cool is the computer nerds have worked really hard on making it not just a website for a podcast/radio show, but really turning it into a library. It is linked all throughout it, and it is available on the big search engines so that people, when they type in different Christian things, our show's going to pop up. Conversations that we've had with some of these pastors and ministry leaders are going to pop up, and they're going to be exposed to it so that the show will, number one, grow. But more than that, the show will have an impact on people's lives. It will be bigger than us. And that was always the prayer when we started putting that website together, is that it's more than just, oh, hey, here's the Steve Show, and here's the archives, and here's the current show, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for joining us. No. We want it to be something much bigger, and God is answering that prayer, and we're so thankful for it. So, again, please go look at it for yourself, stevemarstonshow.com. On Mondays, we like to do Sunday morning takeaways. This is where we go back to look at the sermons that you heard yesterday and get your take. What was the sermon about? What moved you about it? What is something that you can draw from it to bring into this new week? And I always like to start the Sunday morning takeaways. Mine was that Jesus is all about the gospel. We, a lot of times, love to see the social aspects of what ministry can do, helping people, feeding the hungry and clothing those that are naked, sheltering those that don't have shelter. But when it comes down to it all, the bottom line is the gospel and getting that into people's hands, making sure that those we are helping and reaching in Jesus' name actually hear that He came to earth, lived a perfect life, died for their sins, and rose again and is soon coming back. That's the gospel. And you hear a lot of times people have the friction, well, why don't you do more helping the poor? Why don't you do more in that area? And when you look at John chapter 6, we see an incredible example of Jesus kind of putting His foot down. Because at the beginning of the chapter, you see Him feeding the 5,000 because they've been with Him for a while, they haven't eaten anything, and then He turns the miraculous bread and fish to save and feed everybody. Then what happens after that? He goes across the water, walking across the water with His disciples. But then, after those two amazing back-to-back miracles, Jesus is there by the sea in Capernaum, and all of a sudden the crowd finds Him, and they want more bread. They are there for their need to be met from hunger. Well, Jesus kind of puts His foot down and says, you're coming for the wrong reason. Now, is Jesus not compassionate? Is Jesus just mean-spirited? No, but He makes sure everybody understands that He is the bread of life. And when you partake of Him, it meets the greatest need that you have. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but when you look at the Gospels really in depth, every time Jesus had an opportunity to set up a feeding ministry, He didn't do it. To set up a healing ministry where He just healed the sick, He didn't do it. Every time He had a chance to do all of those things, He didn't, but instead he chose to leave those areas and to go and continue to preach the gospel. And that's got to be our main takeaway too. All of the other social aspects, helping people, is good, but we don't want to create dependency. We want to create disciples. So that's my takeaway from the bread of life in John chapter 6. Others thought it had some really good answers too for Sunday morning takeaways. I threw it out on social media like I always do, and we got these responses from our listeners. Brian checked in and said that the sermon he heard about was the cycle of sin and Judges. Sin, judgment, confession, Judge rescues. He said 3 parts to the sin problem in Judges. Number 1, when we don't know the Lord, we won't know or do what is right. When we don't know what is right, we'll do what is right in our own eyes. And then number 3, when we know the King, we'll surrender or obey. It's really good stuff. Thank you, Brian. Kim checked in. Her Sunday morning takeaway was from 1 Samuel chapter 1. She said, we all have obstacles God doesn't remove. Instead, he makes a way around them, but we must strive to get past looking at our outward circumstances and look at the heart. Looks are deceiving, but a person's heart is not. Oh, that's good stuff. Especially that case when we realize that life's not always going to be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. If we'll realize that, bad things are going to happen and just prepare for it and just know that that's an expectation that at some point it's going to come around in our lives, it's going to help us out so much. Terrell said, talking about changing our mindset to what God expects and controlling our inputs. Like that. Kelly checked in, said Ephesians chapter 1. She said the Holy Spirit is our helper series, is what her pastor was going through. Said this morning was that he was the one who seals. He seals and identifies us as God's people, marks us as God's possession, and guarantees God's promise. We hear, we must believe, and we are sealed. Oh, that'll preach. That's really powerful stuff. Let's get one more in here. So many more checked in, but we've got time for one more. Roger said his pastor preached on the mighty prayers have consequences. Acts chapter 4. Really good stuff. Thank you guys for checking in with your Sunday morning takeaways. We'll have more next week for you here on the Steve Marston Show. Back in a minute. The Steve Marston Show continues, the Christian radio show / podcast that really matters. And it's because of the content of what we talk about, helping you to live more like Jesus. It's good to have you here. And our YouTube channel is a great place for you to go check out because we have revamped it and we are needing help. That's the 2 main reasons. Number 1, we want to encourage you to check out all the videos that we have there, full episodes, but also videos of just our conversations that we've had with people. We would love for you to share those, especially if someone we've talked to has really moved you and that conversation was like, wow, that's good. Other people need to hear that. Please share it. That would help us out so much. And then also, we would like for you to do what every other podcast / radio host asks, and that is to hit subscribe, to like the program, and to ring that notification bell. Because the more of you that do that, the more it opens the door for others to be able to experience the same content that you are doing. So it's a twofold purpose, and we're trying to grow this radio show, trying to make it as good as possible in the hands of as many people as possible. But the bottom line is it only is going to happen if you take that step, if you click that subscription button and notification bell and all of that stuff, sharing videos. That is something that I can't do on my own. I have to have help, and it has to come from you. And I would appreciate you doing that, and I thank you in advance for stepping out and doing it. So, again, check out youtube.com/Steve Marston Show. Okay, I wanted to bring back a conversation, and gosh, this goes back to, I guess, March or April of this year, it was with Mark Evans. Mark is the longtime pastor. In fact, he founded the church at Rock Creek, and he has just been a light in our community for decades, sharing Jesus, but doing it in a way that reaches out to people who are not necessarily the churched. He really has a heart for those that are not churched, and he has a way of being able to communicate the gospel and the scriptures and do it in a very relational way, to be able to reach your coworkers or your family members or anyone else who doesn't believe and will maybe never come to church. That's kind of Mark's heart. And he used to have a program here on 99.5 The Word, and we're hoping that that will return maybe in some form really soon. But he's a guy that always is inspiring, and he always, like I says, brings a great message. And the conversation we had touched on a lot of things, but specifically it talked about earning trust with others. And we have to give trust before we expect to get it in return. And it's kind of backwards the way our society says to do it and the way we kind of feel wired in our own kind of selfish nature of how to do it. But Mark brought up some really good points in this, and I thought, this was something that needs to be heard more often. So we wanted to bring this conversation back with him and let you hear it, because I think it will really help you and really inspire you as you move throughout your day and move throughout your week. So I started the conversation by asking Mark about what's been going on lately at the church at Rock Creek.
Now we're looking ahead for the remainder of the year. Just was talking about Christmas with one of our staff people. So, it's moving fast and furious, and I'm excited about what we got lying ahead, and we're ramping up some of the simple things of ministry, like evangelism, reaching people for Christ, and how we do that on a more personal, practical basis.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit, because you and I were kind of chatting before we went on the air here about that's kind of been a focus. I've noticed it seems like you look around social media, and it seems like a lot of people have been that same kind of focus about reaching out to those that are around them and just sharing the good news, sharing the hope that we have.
Yeah, and I think that even before we start telling people this is how you begin a relationship with Jesus, and how a person needs to accept Christ and what all of that means, I think we've got to show it first, and we've got to show it in how we relate to people and how we respond to people, and we've got to make sure that we're doing things as Christians that reflect Jesus to people, like be kind to someone before they earn your kindness. Don't just think, okay, I'll be nice to you when you're nice to me. Nah, you smile first, speak first, help first. Like Ephesians 4 says, to be kind and compassionate. Yeah. That's a directive from Scripture, and those are the kinds of steps that we need to take as Christians, so that people will be open, to hearing about. All right, so how do I become a Christian?
Yeah, and my pastor always says that no matter what's going on, no matter what the person does or has done or said or has thought about doing, we don't have as Christians the right to be unkind in any situation. And that's so hard to actually live out, because, hey, look, we might be on the quote-unquote moral right side of an issue, but if we're not kind about it, man, it just it can make things worse.
Sure it can, and it definitely can make things worse. But if we would take the step of forgiving quickly, and refuse to keep score, drop the grudge, choose the opportunity to show them, all right, I'm going to forgive you, just as the Lord's forgiven me. And it doesn't mean that I'm a weak person. It means I'm trying to resemble Jesus.
Yeah, and sometimes, obviously, we can, there's degrees, I think people would say, oh, well, I can forgive up to a certain point. But just because you forgive someone doesn't automatically mean it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. it means that you're not holding that grudge. You've got to be able to let that go for your own well-being.
Yeah, it does. And it also means that the Lord is working on you as he's working through you, and that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Mark Evans is our guest here on the Steve Marston Show. He's an author, a pastor, a speaker. He's someone who is very inspirational in his messages and has a great way of being able to take the scriptural and turn it into these practical ways to live out our faith. So, we talk about forgiveness and we talk about being kind. That goes such a long way in this world where people are really, I think, searching for answers, even though they may not always verbalize it that way. I think you and I both have been around long enough to know that people really do seek after some kind of peace and some kind of tranquility, something to make life make sense.
Yeah, and what you're doing on a daily basis as a follower of Jesus is you're trying to earn that right to be heard.
Yeah,
in somebody's life, and that's why these things that I'm talking about are so important. If you're earning that right to be heard, that's why you got to start with speaking life, not just truth. You start by encouraging them more than you correct. You start by building them up more than you call them out. And you're earning, as you do that kind of stuff, as you build them up, as you encourage them, you're earning the right to be heard because you're saying what people need, not just what is accurate or what is true. You're making sure, what Colossians says, to always let your conversation be full of grace. And as you're doing that, you're building up that I'm trying to look for what's the word I'm trying to look for. You're building up the
credibility
for them to trust you. Yeah, the ability to be trusted.
Yeah, and that goes such a long way too, because even in this day and age, you see so many people that have, and some of it obviously is more noticeable than others, but it seems like a lot of people do have trust issues, whether it's because of a bad childhood growing up or maybe something going wrong in a relationship. Trust issues are there, and we just have to be, I think, just patient. Wouldn't you say, to try to continue to not give up on a relationship just because the other person makes it a little difficult?
Yeah. And there, like you said, Steve, there are so many different reasons why people today, I think it is more difficult today than it was 20 years ago for sure, have trust issues, and those come at all directions in people's lives. And so you've got to decide as a Christian, I'm going to love people who are hard to love, because most of us are hard to love.
That's true.
So I'm gonna love the people who are even difficult to love, that are overlooked, that are different than me, and that doesn't mean at all that I'm embracing. I'm saying I believe what you believe. No, you're different than me, so I'm going to love you. When in Matthew 5, when Jesus says love your enemies, he's saying love people that are different than you.
Yeah,
that's what that. At the heart of that passage says, because that's where Christlikeness becomes unmistakable. No question about it. I'm going to show you love. You're very different than I am. And you and I are not at all on the same wavelength much in life, other than we're humans and we breathe air and we eat food. But I'm going to love you. And again, I'm just earning the right to be heard at some point.
I have a buddy of mine who is one of our big listeners here to the radio station, and has been for a long time. And the way he always ends a lot of his social media posts is, "I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it." And I just think that is so good, because he's somebody that I look up to a lot, because he has those characteristics that we're talking about, that where people are kind of drawn to him because he's kind, because he's quick to forgive, and he's there to love people no matter what they have done or what maybe they look like, or et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff.
That is so important. People and people just they want to be received like that, accepted like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And two, I think as Christians, if we listen to people more than we talk, it would be a great gift.
Well, it's that old saying Mom said, right? You got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
Yeah. If you listen to people like they really matter, and it will open up all kinds of doors, because to them, we're all used to everybody talking, everybody being heard, but listening really feels like oxygen in a lot of ways to people. It's life-giving, because somebody is actually going to listen to me. They're not interrupting me. They're not trying to fix me immediately. Just being present and listening to what somebody has to say is a gift from God.
Oh, absolutely. And here's what I think too: when you're doing that, again, that's so kind of counterculture to everybody else, because most people are just looking at you, maybe making eye contact, but they're thinking about the next thing they're going to say. They're not engaged in what you're really saying. And if we can do that with people, we can really listen and really engage them on what I've heard said, and I think this is a great way to say it. The one thing people are expert in is themselves. And if we can do that, engage with them on their level, asking them about themselves and finding out about them, that goes to building that trust that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's so true. And a good barometer on that is to look at Scripture and see how many times Jesus asked someone a question.
Yeah.
He didn't arrive with a sermon in hand. Okay, I'm not saying he didn't know it, but he didn't arrive like, okay, this is what he built relationships by asking questions.
Yeah, he sure did.
And letting people listen to people about their lives and what they thought and what they believed, and then he went from there to tell them truth.
Absolutely. And I think that's the next step. A lot of times, I think sometimes we think we're doing good where we just kind of leave it there. We're building that trust, but we never take that next step. And that's the probably scariest step, but we do have to let people know about Christ. And if we've earned that trust, we need to take that next step.
Yeah. And that is earning the trust allows you the opportunity to tell them about Jesus, but you got to get to that point.
Yes.
Don't stop before you get to the point of sharing the gospel with them and telling them how the gospel changed your life, how the truth of Jesus changed your life, and don't think you have to know all the answers too, Steve. I think that's another thing Christians really miss, is I think if I start telling somebody about Jesus, they're going to ask me a question that I don't know the answer to. Do what I do. Tell them, I don't know, but I'll find out.
There you go.
That works.
That works. And I think another, to just kind of dovetail what you're saying, is once we've earned that trust, and because I think the biggest fear we have of sharing our faith is, it's going to ruin the relationship. They're going to be upset with me, blah, blah, blah. But if you have earned that trust and you present it with the grace and the kindness, they're going to listen. They may not agree. They may not accept Christ as their Savior, but at least they'll know you're the genuine article.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to listen, and what you start today you may not see them accept Christ right then, but it's a start. You're getting there.
Absolutely. Mark Evans, it is always a pleasure to run you down, my friend, to be able to get some of this truth and just things we know to do, but just that reminder to keep doing them. You're always the best. We appreciate you.
Ben, Steve, thank you so much, man. Have a great rest of the day and a great show.
That's a part of a conversation we had with Mark Evans, the pastor of the church at Rock Creek, back just after Easter this year. Mark, just a tremendous guy, and a guy who has a really good handle on being able to relationally give the gospel, and has so many good tips of how to do that and how we can make a difference and earn that trust to be heard in different situations. Just really top shelf stuff. Really appreciate Mark anytime he can join us here on the Steve Marston Show. Okay, stay with us. We've got more coming up, including our dad joke of the day before too much longer. It's the Steve Marston Show, and we're back in a flash. Don't move. Okay, it's the Steve Marston Show. Thank you for your company. We are thrilled and delighted to be with you as always. It's time to welcome in our special guest, and this guy is a first-timer here on the show. He's the pastor of Heights Community Church. His name is Ken Hicks. Ken, welcome in, brother. Good to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Well, it is a pleasure for us to have you on the program. So let's talk a little bit about how you came to know Christ and how your foundation of faith led you to a calling of being a pastor, and what that all looked like.
Yeah, I had a blessing of really growing up in a home where my mom and dad were for sure chasing after Jesus. I like to say I had a drug problem as a kid, though. I got drugged to church every time the doors were open.
Sure.
But ultimately, for me, I knew a lot about the Bible, but I was 15 and at camp for the first time, actually, August 2nd, 1985. We were out at Mo Ranch here in Texas in the hill country. And, and that relationship for me went from knowing all about Jesus to starting to know him on a real and personal level. And so that night I exchanged my life with Christ and decided I wanted to have a personal relationship with him. I remember going back to the cabin at night. I was pumped and told our guys, I said, man, I want y'all to pray for me, man. I accepted Jesus tonight. And they all just kind of looked at me like, man, we thought you'd already done that. I didn't drink, smoke, cuss, or chew, or date the girls that do. Like I was at church all the time. But for me, it wasn't a relationship. It was just a thing we did, and it was information and education. It just wasn't transformation. And so that journey started for me at 15 in a personal way, but I certainly had a strong foundation for that. My dad was gracious enough, not knowingly, it wasn't even on purpose, but I really kind of learned how to read the Bible and study the Bible by watching my dad do it, and why he sat down with different colors of markers and what those things meant for him in the Word of God. And I kind of picked up small pieces of that through my life along the way. And then went to college, came back, was playing basketball in college, and started coaching college basketball. And I had a season where I kind of walked away from the Lord. But the beauty of God is he didn't walk away from me. And at about 21, I decided to come back to him. And I said, Lord, I don't know what this looks like, but I was coaching college basketball at the time. And I said, hey, I'll give you 1 year. And then I'm going to go back to coaching college basketball, because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing, and I loved it, and I was good at it, and it was awesome. And so I spent 1 year at the church that I was going to when I exchanged my life with Jesus here at Trinity Baptist in San Antonio, a pastor named Buckner Fanning at the time. And 1 year led to 2 years. About the middle of that third year, I started going, man, I really enjoy this too, right? I'm not sure maybe this is what God's called me to do. And so I started seminary about halfway through that third year, and switched from student ministry into a season of sports ministry. And that was kind of a great fit of both places, where I could use my love for sports and my love for Jesus and combine those two things to go reach people for the gospel. So I finished seminary and finished working there at Trinity Baptist in that space, went to Mountain Home, Arkansas for 5.5 years and served up there, built the Christian Life Center that's up there now, and still going strong in that community. We spent about 5.5 years up there, and then came back to San Antonio in 2004 for me to start a sports ministry at a church here in town. And we got that thing off the ground, and then in 2009 decided to leave that big experience and go start a church from our living room. So we birthed Heights Community Church together with the Lord in 2009.
That is amazing. I want to go back to something that you brought up at the very first part of your story, and that is the church camp experience. I know for my own self and the lives of my kids how important church camps usually are, because you're right. So often kids that grow up in church know all the right answers and can spout out everything, the Sunday school way. But when they have an opportunity to just kind of get away from everything, especially this day and age with all the cell phones and all the tech, and just be able to focus on Jesus for a week out in the middle of nowhere in cabins with a bunch of other believers, it's a very special thing, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, again, sometimes what happens is we know all the right answers and be living differently. And in my case, I mean, I knew all the right answers, and my life looked like it too. It just wasn't a relationship. It was just kind of like going to school. I'd go to school and make all A's too, right? I can go to school, I show up, I do it, I do my part, I do my homework, I come back, I can produce the information. But it's just different. And when you get away from all of those things, the Lord has a way of kind of allowing you to see him because we're not quite as distracted. And that's for sure one of Satan's greatest tools in our culture, I think, overall still today is just, I don't have to win. I just need to keep you distracted from him, and I still win. So we do camp at our church. We do family camp for our families, and then we do take our students to a student camp. But it is for sure a great place for the Lord to have some opportunity to connect in new ways.
Yeah, absolutely. We're visiting here with Ken Hicks. He is the pastor and lead pastor, I guess is the best way to say it, at Heights Community Church, and he joins us here on the Steve Marston Show. And we kind of went through your bio kind of quickly, but I also want to go back and talk about your college experience and that kind of decision path you were on after, playing college basketball and then coaching college basketball. I mean, a lot of times people would say that that's it. And then when you felt that tug to kind of go back to church, walk us through those days. How tough was it for you to make that decision to drop college basketball and to give full-time ministry, a chance for a year?
Yeah, that's interesting. Once I decided to come back to Jesus, and again, it wasn't him that moved. I just started chasing another God, right? Mm-hmm. The whole goal was putting the ball in the basket and enjoying everything that came with that. And unfortunately, I missed an incredible opportunity on our college campus to use it for the glory of God, which stinks. But his grace was sufficient in that space. And so once I decided to come back, whether it was coaching college basketball or doing ministry or whatever, I think I was going to start steering in that direction of at least being in communion with him. And if I'm just being honest, it wasn't a crazy difficult decision to set it down for a year. I had the lowest coaching job on the totem pole. Mm-hmm. They don't pay anything hardly. I mean, you can't even hardly live on it. Nobody wants the job, and based off of relationships and things I had experienced, I could go get that job somewhere in the country anytime. Mm-hmm. So the thought process was, hey, I'll just set this low job on the totem pole. But again, I'm 21, so no big deal. Like, everybody's supposed to have the low job on the totem pole at 21. And so I'll set it down for a year, and then I'll just pick it back up, go somewhere else. Whether I go back to the same university or somewhere else, those jobs are a dime a dozen. Mm-hmm. So it didn't feel like I was laying my whole career aside. I just thought it was going to be for 1 year and not, we're on year 32 now. So yeah.
Isn't it crazy how that happens, right? You figure, okay, because I have a similar story in a different kind of way. Like, my wife really said, once we got married and started having kids, she would like to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. That was her biggest dream and biggest desire, much more than anything else she would want to accomplish, career-wise. And I said, okay, we could try it for a year and see what happens. And then guess what? That turned into 25 years,
Right, yep.
And so
so I didn't have this Paul on the road to Damascus experience in that for sure. But God's been good, and he's been faithful, and I still gotten to coach. I coached my kid, I was a sports pastor, so I got to use all of that for, so many years. I got to coach my own kids. We did Upward, we did AAU stuff. My daughter had every opportunity she wanted to play in college as well, and 9 of our 10 AAU girls all played in college. And
wow.
So I kind of got to scratch that itch still within the confines of my first church, which was really cool too, right? To still get to coach, but get to do it with my own kids. And then got to do it at a Christian high school here in San Antonio once she went to college. And I did that for a few years as well. So, it's always been a piece of my story, but it's not been the piece of my story.
Right, right. Ken Hicks is our guest here on the Steve Marston Show. He's the pastor of Heights Community Church here in San Antonio. And I wanted to also bring up this, I found pretty interesting, 360 enrichment that you are started, because it's all about marriage and family. Talk a little bit about why this was created and what you've seen the Lord work through in and around the area with this.
Yeah, it's interesting. We as a church have a different model than many by design, not by need per se, but that is like nobody is full time at our church. Mm. Old school phrase that we used to use when I was in seminary is somebody would be considered bivocational.
Right.
And in that day and age, and I don't know if it's still the same. I graduated from seminary right after Moses, I think, so it's a long time ago. But in that day and age, I remember the feeling was if you were bivocational, it's because you weren't good enough to get a full-time job.
Yeah.
Basically, right? And that was just kind of nobody would say it out loud, but that was really what everybody felt. If you had to have another job, you just weren't good enough to get one that was your only job. And so we kind of coined the phrase with another buddy, and both of us have planted churches in this same lane, but co-vocational. We both left, the 15th largest church in the U.S. at the time. And we had jobs in the corner offices. It was great, and we each went and planted churches. And it's certainly not because we couldn't get a full-time job, but instead we're choosing to have another occupation. You looked at Paul; he had a different career. Jesus had a different career, and so I'm not sure where this lane came from, that this would be our only source of life and income and influence and all those sorts of things. And so we chose from the ground up to go, hey, listen, we're not going to be. My only source of income is not going to come from the church anymore. It had done that for a long time. And so, we started going, hey, I need to own my own business. I need to be in charge of the hours. I need to control the schedule. And I need it to be another place that I can leak the story of Jesus around me. And that way I can still make hospital visits. I can still go do funerals. I can still do the things the church needs. Whereas if I'm an employee at a bank 8 to 5, I can't just go, hey, somebody's having surgery, I got to go.
Right.
That kind of thing. So we have done it in such a way that we all, started companies, own businesses, and do that. And for me, one of the things I love doing, enjoy doing is speaking into the life of building healthy marriages and families. And I still think and still believe if we could solve the crisis in the family in America, a lot of things would change, to be quite honest. And so I was already doing some marriage counseling, premarital counseling, all those sorts of things, and just started taking that to the business world and said, hey, do you realize what the cost of unhealthy families is costing your company? And it's mind-boggling, right? I mean, one employee leaves, a $20 an hour employee leaves, it costs you $12,000 for the year.
Right.
That's the estimated reboot cost, and that's just at a $20 an hour employee. Not to mention, hey, what happens when that person's your top salesperson, or when that's your VIP, your VP, or and so we started wrestling with how does this process work? How do we help build healthy families?
So in our final few seconds here together, tell us a little bit about your church services and how people can connect with you guys there at Heights Community Church and with Enrichment 360.
Yeah, so we're in the central part of our city, right near the airport, 281 in Bitters. We currently have one service, probably looking to change that pretty soon. That's in our conversations as we speak. But our current service is at 9:30 on Sunday mornings, and then community groups happen all throughout the week, all throughout the city. So we were 13 years old before we had a first campus. So everything about our culture was, hey, we had to figure out how to do life in the city. And so once we got a campus, we didn't want to change that. We didn't want people coming to the church all the time and us having to open it and closing it and watching their kids. And we already figured out how to do that without it. So we just left that culture built that way. So we call them community groups and kind of say that's where the secret sauce is in our life. Mm-hmm. And so we do community groups, and then we really, really try hard, which is kind of our connection with your friend Steve Teal as well, to go, hey, how do we make a difference in the city? And so if God had chosen to close our church, the question we're always asking is, would anybody notice that doesn't go to church here?
Yeah.
Are we making a difference in the city and ministry partnerships? And again, because so many of our resources are not allocated to staffing like they are in many cases, then it frees us up to spend so many of God's resources as we worship together in generosity into places that make direct kingdom impact. And so we focus a lot in places like snack packs for kids, peanut butter bowl with Steve, all that kind of stuff, feeding hungry kids, praying through schools, making sure, 600 children a weekend, our church does. We're hanging those bags every week, Thursday and Friday, praying over every one of those kids' names, making sure they eat. We do a ton with the South Texas Alliance for the Orphans and foster ministry, and Don't Go Alone, taking kids that age out of the foster system and building them into networks of relationship and family in our church, so they have somebody to call and be and do. And so, we're just constantly seeking these ministry places. We build beds for families that need beds in order to keep CPS from taking their kids. We, just with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, we just do a ton to go out and be his hands and feet. And we spend less on us, quote unquote, as a result. And for us at our campus, we're okay with that. So that's kind of the DNA of who we are. That is
amazing. What is you guys' website for more information?
HeightsCC.com, HeightsCC.com.
Well, Ken Hicks, you are obviously a very busy man, and I'm thankful for the way you're allowing God to use you in all these different areas and the way he's opening up doors for you. And it's just a pleasure to be able to talk to you. God bless you, my friend. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Have a blessed day.
Welcome back. It's the Steve Marston Show. Discipleship has never sounded or been more fun. It's a thrill and a delight to be with you. And if you're digging what we're doing, you're a church leader, ministry leader, maybe a business owner, we would love to partner with you here on the Steve Marston Show. We've got all kinds of availabilities to get your message out to our audience. One of the thrills of my life is to be able to introduce you to our audience and have you guys become friends and customers of your business or service or ministry. So if that so moves you and you want to reach a growing audience that is all about discipleship, that is concerned greatly with their walk with Christ, but also making sure that the gospel is heard on different kinds of venues and platforms like what we're doing, boy, you could do a whole lot worse than us. So check us out, SteveMarstonShow.com. But we would love for you to join us in this venture. So shoot me an email, steve@salemmedia.com, steve@salemmedia.com, and I'll get you hooked up, whether you're in San Antonio listening on the radio or in Little Rock listening on the radio, or you're at all points in between and you want to get both digital and radio messaging out. Man, we can help you, and we can do it for the most cost-effective bang for your bucks. I'm telling you, let me know. Steve@salemmedia.com. You will be pleasantly surprised. Okay, let's get to some stories that you may have missed. This one comes to us from Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry. And I'm a country music fan. I grew up working a lot of my career in country music. And I got to say that the Grand Ole Opry was never something that I really, was big on, because especially when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s and stuff, it was all of the older kind of hillbilly sounding people, and not my favorites. Let's just put it that way. But now it seems like over the last several decades, it's really opened up for a lot of different kind of styles and genres. And Big Daddy Weave, the CCM band, made their debut at the Grand Ole Opry last Saturday night. They said Mike Weaver, who's the lead singer and main songwriter for the group, said it was an absolute dream to play at the Grand Ole Opry last night, getting to worship and sing about the strong love of Jesus from that circle on that famous stage getting to share that stage with the likes of the Isaacs, Carrie Underwood, and so many amazing people was such a privilege. Getting to do it twice in the same night was even better. And he says, thanks to all who came out and sang with us. We will never forget it. That's a cool memory. And I'm just telling you, it wasn't too long ago. They wouldn't have really been open to somebody like Big Daddy Weave. But I'm so thankful that they are now. Let's see. There's a new website. Here's another story that you may have missed called Protestant Accountability. Shelley Taylor is the president of this organization, and she's a survivor of clergy sexual abuse. She said the organization was created roughly by a dozen survivors to spread awareness, to inform the public and protect potential victims, and help heal those who have already been wounded. Now, she emphasized that the organization does not conduct its own investigations or determine guilt. Instead, it gathers existing public information, including news reports, police reports, and court records, and places that information in one searchable location so that users can review the material for themselves. Among those that are currently listed on the website called Protestant Accountability is people like Willie Rice, who's the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, Southern Baptist Theological Seminary president Dr. Albert Mohler, former SBC president and former executive committee president Dr. Ronnie Floyd, and former SBC presidents Paige Patterson and Johnny Hunt. The ProtestantAccountability.org does not accuse guilt of any persons on their site. They only provide public information on not just the alleged abusers, but also those who have enabled, minimized, or failed to report, covered up, or mishandled abuse. I have such mixed feelings about this because my heart goes out to those victims, and those monsters that really hurt those people need to be brought to account, and we need to shine the light on this, but also to start naming names of people who were quote unquote associated with it or help cover it up. Look, if they really did it, then yes, let's make sure they get named as well. But if it's just kind of hearsay and it's just kind of, well, they obviously had to be, drawing dots, or trying to connect dots, then I'm not for that. But it's just a sad situation that we're having to go through it anyway. But I like the idea on the surface of it. And one more story you may have missed comes from Grace Community Church in Southern California. These folks are Dr. MacArthur's people. This is Grace to You, where it was headquartered. Dr. MacArthur and Grace to You has been a part of Salem Media for literally decades. They've been wonderful partners with us, especially AM 630 The Word in San Antonio and 99.5 The Word in Little Rock, and have been a part of the lineup really since day one of both radio stations. And they had an announcement of who was going to take over as pastor officially for Dr. MacArthur. And it didn't come as any surprise to anyone there, but Nate Buzenitz has been named official lead pastor of Grace Community Church. The announcement came on the 1-year anniversary of Dr. MacArthur's memorial service. Nate had been pastor as an interim after Dr. MacArthur's death, but also filled in for him a lot when he was ill as well. And the statement from the church's website says this: Dr. MacArthur served as pastor of Grace Community Church for 56 years. Pastor John's ministry was marked by an uncompromising commitment to the lordship of Christ and the authority of his word. It says our elders remain steadfast in holding to those same priorities. Having grown up at Grace, Nathan is already known and beloved by our church family. While studying at the Master's University and Seminary, he served as Bible study shepherd in Crossroads, which is their college ministry, and later as a co-pastor in Cornerstone Fellowship Group. They say Nathan's giftedness for preaching and shepherding became evident in these ministries through clear in teaching and his humble leadership. And then it goes on to say, as Nathan steps into his new role and transitions from leading the seminary, the elders ask the congregation to faithfully lift him up and his family in prayer. We enter this new season of ministry with gratitude to God for his faithfulness and for his in the past, and joyful confidence in his future plan. To God be the glory. The elders of Grace Community Church. That such a nice thing. And a good way for a good man to be introduced as the new pastor of Grace Community Church there in Southern California. A quick break, and we're back after this.
Here at the Steve Marston Show, we are serious about faith, but we love a good dad joke, too.
The dad joke of the day is from the home office in Seguin, Texas. It says, I told my suitcase there would be no vacations this year. Now, I'm dealing with emotional baggage. See, it's all those unintended consequences, right? Welcome back. The Steve Marston Show continues. It's always a thrill and a delight to be with you. And again, would love for you to check out SteveMarstonShow.com. It's the home of this show, yes, with all the different episodes that we have and all the conversations, but it's also more than that, much more, in fact. It's becoming a library for Christians to turn to find peace and to find comfort and to find encouragement. But it's also that way for those that are not in the church. That's what the prayer of our website has been, to be bigger than the show. And God is really answering that prayer and opening that door. Because when people are typing in those kind of keywords, they're bringing up the Steve Marston Show as an answer on these major search engines. And it is just a blessing. And it's really just now getting underway, but we could use your help. Just go to the website, click around, let us know what you think, but also you can find encouragement there too. So again, please and thank you, SteveMarstonShow.com. Every week on Monday, we come up with a brand new Bible verse for us to learn throughout the week. We call it Faith Between Your Ears, because I am just convinced that the way we grow in our faith, the way that we're going to come closer to God and go deeper with God, is by knowing His Word. I think that's what Jesus taught, and I think that's what will really help us. But we've got to put in the work. We've got to be able to kind of discipline ourselves to learn it. And this week's Bible verse is going to be fairly easy to learn. And it's one of those kind of compare and contrasts. And it comes from the book of Proverbs. It's chapter 15, verse 4. Gentle words are a tree of life, and a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. I love the word picture and imagery there, because it shows the power of our speech, both good and bad. And this is a verse that is definitely applicable for our lives every single day in every single situation. So let's memorize it. And I know the first thing you're going to say is, I can't memorize. I'm too old. I just can't do it anymore. Oh, yes, you can. That's just a lie. You can do it. It just may take you a little more time and effort than it used to, but you can absolutely do it. So here's what my challenge is for you. Learn this verse, whether it means writing it out several times, whether it means, taking it and writing it on a Post-it note and putting it where you'll see it on the regular, or saying it out loud over and over. Whatever it takes, let's make sure we learn this verse. And of course, we'll break it down and go over it again tomorrow here on the Steve Marston Show. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 4. As we leave you today, your next step is to learn to go the second mile and learn to love it. That's part of being a disciple, like we talked about in the very first segment. Back on the radio at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Hope you'll join us then, or online everywhere else. Adios.